Today's shir is Lilu Nishmat Rachalea Bat Reb Chaim Tzvi. Sometimes someone wants to make an acquisition on behalf of someone else. Now, this can be done in two ways. One way could be that you're going to be their shliach, you're going to be their agent, that they asked you, they appointed you to go and buy something on their behalf. If you're their shliach, if you're their agent, then as soon as you make the act of acquisition on the property that you're buying on their behalf, from that moment the property belongs to them. But there's another way that you can, and the laws of shlichut we'll get into in a later shiur. But there's another way that you can make an acquisition on for someone else, and that's what's called midin zachin, where it's beneficial for the other person to acquire this thing, even though they don't know and they didn't ask you to acquire it for them. You can make that acquisition on their behalf. Now, it could be that there are repercussions of this halacha. If you've acquired something on someone else's behalf without their knowledge, they have to pay for it. So let's explain this halacha of when you can buy something on behalf, or you can acquire, not necessarily buy, when you can acquire something on behalf of someone else. Let's say that you've been invited to someone for Shabbat. You've been invited to someone's Shabbos table, and you like to bring them a nice bottle of wine for Shabbos morning. And we know that there's a halacha that we don't make kinyanim, we don't give presents on Shabbat. So how can you get around this problem? Very simply. You give the bottle of wine to someone else on Erev Shabbat, and you tell them to acquire it on behalf of your host. How can they do it? The guy doesn't know that he's buying this bottle, he's acquiring this bottle of wine. Seeing as it's a gift, seeing as it's totally beneficial for the recipient, there are no obligations involved in him acquiring this bottle of wine. So therefore, it's a total zchut for him, it's completely beneficial for him. Someone else can make that acquisition on his behalf. Now, of course, you have to understand, you cannot do that on his behalf. I mean, if I own a bottle of wine, which is in my right hand, I can't give it over to my left hand and say my left hand is going to acquire on behalf of my host. Because it's ridiculous, because I can't be two people at one time. I can't be myself that I'm giving over and him that he's receiving at the same time. But a third party can receive and acquire on behalf of him. So that's the way you do it with a bottle of wine on Shabbos. You would give it over to someone else. This other person said, please, I'm going to so-and-so for Shabbat. I want you to acquire this bottle of wine on their behalf. You give it over to the other person acquires it on their behalf. And now when you go over to them on Shabbos and give them the bottle of wine, you're not giving them now a matana. They're not now making a kinyan and making an acquisition on this bottle of wine. It's already theirs. And that's the way people get around the problem of kinyanim on Shabbat. Now, if it's a gift, with almost all gifts, it's a total zchut for the other person to receive the gift. So there's not really any problem. But sometimes, let's say, let me tell you a case. Mrs. Cohen had a neighbour, Mrs. Levy, and Mrs. Levy had told her that she's looking for a really big pot to make the cholent for Shabbos. And she can't find one big enough anywhere. She has lots of guests every Shabbat. She's looking for a really big pot. So Mrs. Cohen went to the marketplace, and while she's in the marketplace, she saw a really big pot. She said, why? This is exactly what Mrs. Levy needs. Let me buy it for her. She paid the money, bought the pot, and took it with her. When she's on the bus, on the way home, she was a bit tired, she fell asleep a little bit, woke up at her bus stop, got off the bus and forgot the pot on the bus. When she got home, she said, listen, She suddenly remembered what had happened. She tried to phone up the bus company. She couldn't get the pot back. No one had turned in this large pot. She told her Mrs. Levy, said, "No, Mrs. Levy, I was in the marketplace the other day and I saw a large pot and I bought it for you. I had my intention was to buy it for you at the time, because I knew that you wanted one. I knew it's a zchut for you. I knew it's something that you want. And the price was a very, very cheap price, a good price. So I bought it on your behalf. Now listen, I'm sorry, when I was on the bus, I forgot it. You know, to forget something, well, it wasn't negligent on my part that I forgot it. This is what she's saying. In a moment we'll just see whether she's right or wrong. It's not negligent on my part to forget it. So I'm sorry, but you have to pay me now the price of the pot, because I paid it from my own money and I bought it for you. Mrs. Levy said,